What's going on? How we doing today? Happy Monday. Hope you guys are having a killer Monday. Early morning, roughly around noontime right now. But I kind of got a busy day ahead of me, so why not take care of this now while I have some time? Without further ado, let's get into it. In his laboratory, he had what he called his personal communication room. It was practically soundproof and so arranged that all light would be shut out. It was equipped with a small table on which he kept a pad of writing paper. In front of the paper on the wall was an electric push button which controlled the lights. When Dr. Gates desired to draw upon the forces available to him through his creative imagination, he would go into his room, see himself at the table, shut off the lights, and concentrate upon the known factors of the invention on which he was working. Remaining in that position till ideas began to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. On one occasion, ideas came through so fast that he was forced to write for almost 3 hours. When the thoughts stopped flowing and he examined his notes, he found that they contained a minute description of principles that had no parallel among the known idea of the scientific world. Moreover, the answer to his problem was intellectually presented in those notes. In this manner, Dr. Gates completed over 200 patents which had been begun but not completed by half-baked brains. Evidence of the truth of this statement is the United States Patent Office. Dr. Gates earned his living by sitting for ideas. For individuals and corporations, some of the largest corporations in America paid him substantial fees by the hour for sitting for ideas. The reasoning faculty is often faulty because it is largely guided by our accumulated experience. Not all knowledge that we accumulate through experience is accurate. Ideas received through the creative faculty are much more reliable because they come from resources more reliable than any available to the reasoning faculty of the mind. The major difference between the genius and the ordinary crank inventor may be found in the fact that the genius works through his faculty of creative imagination, while the crank knows nothing for this faculty. The scientific inventor, such as Mr. Edison and Dr. Gates, makes a use of both the synthetic and the creative faculties of imagination. For example, scientific inventors or geniuses began an invention by organizing and combining the known ideas or principles accumulated through experience. Through the synthetic faculty, the reasoning faculty, if they find this accumulated knowledge should be sufficient for the completion of the invention, they then draw upon the sources of knowledge available to them through their creative faculty. The method by which this is done varies with the individual, but this is the sum and substance of the procedure. Number 1, they stimulate their mind so that they vibrate on a higher than of average plane using one or more of the 10 mind stimulants or some other stimulant of their choice. Number 2, they concentrate upon the known factors, the finished part of the invention, and create their minds as perfect picture of unknown factors, the unfinished part of the invention. They hold this picture in mind until it has been taken over by the subconscious mind and then relax by clearing their minds of all thought and wait for the answer to pop up. Sometimes the results are both defined and immediate. At other times the results are negative, depending upon the state of development of the sixth sense or creative faculty. Mr. Edison tried out more than 10,000 different combinations of ideas through the synthetic faculty of his imagination before he tuned in through the creative faculty and got the answer that perfected the incandescent light. His experience was similar when he produced the talking machine. There is plenty of reliable evidence that the faculty of creative imagination exists. This evidence is available through accurate analysis of people who have become leaders in their respective callings without having had extensive educations. Lincoln was a notable example of a leader who achieved greatness through the discovery and use of his faculty of creative imagination. He discovered and began to use this faculty as a result of the stimulation of love, which he experienced after he met Anne Rutledge. The pages of history are filled with records of great leaders whose achievement may be traced directly to the influence of women who aroused the creative faculties of their minds through the stimulation of sex desire. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of these. When inspired by his first wife, Josephine, he was irresistible and invincible. When his better judgment or reasoning faculty prompted him to put Josephine aside, he began to decline. His defeat and Saint Helena were not far distant. If good taste would permit, we might easily mention scores of well-known men who climbed to great heights of achievement under the stimulating influence of their wives, only to drop back to destruction after money and power went to their heads, and they put aside the old wife for a new one. Napoleon was not the only man to discover that sex influence from the right source is more powerful than any substitute of expectancy which may be created by mere reason. The human mind responds to stimulation. Among the greatest and most powerful of these stimuli is the urge of sex. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting people into their higher sphere of thought that enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyance that beset their pathway on the lower plane. Unfortunately, only the geniuses have made the discovery. Others have accepted the experience of sex urge without discovering one of its major potentialities. The fact that accounts for the great number of others are as compared to the limited number of geniuses. Sex energy is creative energy of all geniuses. They never have there never has been and will never be a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in this driving force of sex. Surely no one will misunderstand these statements to mean that all who are highly sexed are geniuses. One attains to the status of a genius only when and if one's mind is stimulated so that it draws upon the forces available through the creative faculty of the imagination. Chief among the stimuli with which this stepping up of the vibrations may be produced is sex energy. The mere possession of this energy is not sufficient to produce a genius. The energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact until some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of a genius. Far from becoming geniuses because of great sex desires, all too many people lower themselves through misunderstanding and misuse of this great force to the status of the lower animals. I'll take a pause there. Just like as it's kind of talking more about the sex desires and how in some cases that a wife or a significant other may be able to push a man far beyond his potential because of maybe some kind of accountability or some kind of some kind of ability that is within them that a wife or significant other can get them out of. I remember this one video that I'm sure a billionaire or multi-millionaire mentioned that the greatest asset that they have is their wife, or something that every man should get into or should have or should be appreciated of is their wife. And I just thought that that's kind of what this kind of this reading is about the sex desires, but not only that, the great collaboration and camaraderie that you may have with another individual, in this case being a wife. But yeah, it's kind of like a person that's always pushing you, always supporting you, but it's also one of those things where you want to show up for them and you want to make sure that you're providing for them and whatnot. So yeah, that's what I took away from that, and see you guys tomorrow. Peace.